say, but I guess I'm wondering why governments took so long to do anything about this. Was George Pelton's power partly what stopped them? When victims were starting to come forward, not in huge numbers, but we were starting to hear about them, but still governments did nothing.
All through Howard's time, there were repeated calls for a royal commission, and Howard always said no. Pell always said no, Howard always said no. When the Irish reports came down, those staggering reports of what happened in Ireland, which I think are very important in the whole shift of public opinion in Australia, because Ireland kind of is Australia in a way, isn't it really? And certainly the Irish Church and the Australian Church, I mean, how can you distinguish the two? Those reports were staggering, and Pell was there immediately saying, yes, but Australia's not Ireland. Don't do it, don't have a royal commission, don't do it. And governments listened to him. Now, Gillard didn't, we'll get to that in a minute. I've written, for 20-something years, I've been fascinated by religion and politics, and what is it that makes politicians in particular, what makes politicians willing to honour the wishes of some of the least popular religious leaders in the country? And Pell's view of how Catholics should lead their lives and how Australians should lead their lives are strongly held minority views. Mainstream Catholicism is not Pell-style Catholicism. And yet, governments have honoured what figures like Pell have wanted to do, like Brigadier Jim Wallace, retired of the Australian Christian Lobby, and truly, his values, it's truly horrible. And yet governments have listened to him, governments go, and when the Royal Commission was finally called, John Sturton, who runs Nielsen Polling, just off his own bat, put at the bottom of his fortnightly polling he did for Fairfax about, who's your preferred Prime Minister, what do you think of the Royal Commission? 95% support for the calling of the Royal Commission. He's never seen any result like that in all of his time as a pollster. This would indicate that there was very, very strong public support for an inquiry into what the churches were up to for a long time. The politicians weren't listening to that. The politicians were listening to the religious leaders who were saying, no. This is my theory. My theory is politicians in this country are really scared of the mayhem that religious leaders can cause if they kick up a fuss. It's the fuss. And because we so rarely have to confront issues of religious liberty in this country, it is very easy for religious leaders to misrepresent their defence of privilege as a fight for religious freedom. And politicians are just dead scared of it. So last year, and there's no support for this kind of thing inside the Catholic Church, or indeed inside other churches except for some fringe loonies. Last year, at the request of religious leaders, the Gillard government, or might have been even earlier this year, put into law the right of church employers, when using public money to conduct public functions like education, health, etc., the right not to employ people like me, poofters, lesbians, transsexuals, remarried divorcees, with public money. Now that's not on in Britain, that's not on anywhere in Europe, but we do it in Australia, and there's no public call for it. But it's the fear of the mayhem that might be caused if you just said no.
So the politicians are not necessarily